The morning sun cast long shadows across the Kennedy Space Center's newly constructed Interstellar reception facility. Dr. Sarah Chen adjusted her formal blazer, fighting the urge to check her tablet for the 100th time. After 15 years of deep space signals and careful message exchanges, humanity was about to meet its first alien civilization. Final checks complete on the refreshment station, her assistant Thomas called out, arranging an elegant display of Earth's finest cuisines and beverages. Sarah nodded, her attention drawn to the massive view screen showing the approaching Galactic Council vessels. 3 crystalline ships descended through the atmosphere, their prismatic surfaces refracting sunlight into dazzling patterns across the facility's windows. The assembled dignitaries, politicians, scientists, and military officials from every major nation held their collective breath. Sarah felt her heart racing. As Earth's leading xenobiologist, she had helped decode the aliens' biological data packets, but nothing had prepared her for this moment. The ships landed with impossible grace, barely disturbing the air around them. A soft hum filled the facility as the vessels established their atmospheric bridges. The UN Secretary-General stepped forward, practicing the careful greeting gestures they had learned from the aliens' cultural exchange documents. The first delegate emerged, a tall, elegant being with iridescent skin and flowing robes that seemed to shimmer between dimensions. Sarah's scientific mind raced to categorize every detail. The alien's 6-fingered hands moved in perfect reciprocation of the human greeting, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. Then the second delegate stepped through, turned toward the refreshment table, and everything went wrong. The alien's skin flashed from iridescent to stark white. Its translator device emitted a high-pitched squeal before shouting, "Lethal contamination detected. Emergency protocols engaged." Sarah watched in horror as the elegant delegate collapsed, its environmental field snapping into place with a crack of energy. The other delegates retreated to their ships, emergency lights pulsing across their crystalline surfaces. Warning sirens blared in at least 3 different alien languages. All humans maintain position. The first delegate's voice rang through the facility's speakers. "Your facility has been compromised by an extremely dangerous substance. Please activate your protective equipment immediately." Sarah glanced at her fellow humans, seeing her own confusion mirrored in their faces. They had followed every safety protocol, sterilized every surface, and analyzed every substance for compatibility with alien biology. "We're not detecting any harmful substances." Sarah stepped forward, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Our sensors show normal Earth atmospheric conditions. Please, let us help your colleague." The alien's multifaceted eyes fixed on her, then shifted to the cup she had left on her monitoring station. You have an open container of it. Right there. How are you still alive?" Sarah followed the alien's gaze to her half-finished cup of morning coffee. This is just coffee. It's a traditional Earth beverage." The translator device actually crackled with what seemed like distress. "Traditional? You intentionally produce this substance and consume it." Before Sarah could respond, the fallen delegate was teleported back to their ship in a flash of light. The remaining alien backed away, its environmental field glowing brighter. "We must quarantine the entire facility. The Galactic Council must be informed immediately. This is far more serious than our initial surveys indicated." Confusion turned to concern as the aliens retreated to their ships. Through the view screen, Sarah watched as the crystalline vessels established a quarantine field around the entire facility, its purple energy shimmering in the morning sun. The Secretary-General turned to Sarah, his composure slightly cracked. "Dr. Chen, what just happened?" Sarah looked down at her cooling cup of coffee, then back at the quarantine field, and felt a strange mixture of scientific curiosity and worry settle in her stomach. "Sir, I think we just discovered that something we consider completely harmless might be terrifying to our new galactic neighbors, and I have a feeling this is just the beginning." 6 hours into the quarantine, Dr. Sarah Chen stared at the data stream flooding her terminal. The Galactic Council's emergency broadcasts were being automatically translated, and each new message made less sense than the last. Her coffee had gone cold, forgotten during the crisis, but the aliens' sensors still pinged it as a critical threat. "They're calling Earth a Class 12 death zone," Thomas said, scrolling through his own feed. "But their classification only went up to 10 before this." Sarah rubbed her temples, fighting a headache that made her ironically wish for the very beverage that had sparked this diplomatic crisis. The quarantine field surrounding the facility hummed with purple energy, while above, the crystalline ships maintained their defensive positions. Dr. Chen. The main screen activated, showing the first delegate's face. Their iridescent skin had taken on a pale, almost sickly hue. "Our preliminary reports have been transmitted to the Council. They're not taking it well." The screen split to show feeds from various alien worlds. Sarah watched in fascination as what appeared to be their version of news broadcasts showed images of Earth, focusing particularly on cafes and coffee shops. The alien text scrolling beneath carried warnings about unrestricted neurotoxin production and biological immunity to impossible compounds. "I don't understand." Sarah leaned forward. "Your scans showed Earth was compatible with galactic life. Our initial surveys had a blind spot." The delegate's multifaceted eyes darted nervously to her desk. "We never imagined, never conceived that any species would evolve alongside such substances, let alone deliberately cultivate them. Our sensors were programmed to ignore trace amounts as statistical errors because the alternative was impossible." A new alarm blared through the facility. On screen, one of the news feeds showed a massive ship departing from what appeared to be the Galactic Council's headquarters. "The High Science Director is coming personally," the delegate's translator crackled with stress harmonics. "This situation is unprecedented. A planet-wide production of triple-plus grade neurotoxins, consumed casually by the dominant species." Sarah's scientific mind latched onto the terminology. Triple-plus grade. The highest theoretical classification of toxic substances in galactic law. Anything that can cause complete neural cascade failure from mere environmental exposure. The delegate paused. Until today, it was largely theoretical. No natural source should be able to produce such compounds. Sarah pulled up the chemical structure of caffeine on her tablet, watching as the alien skin shifted colors rapidly upon seeing it. "This molecule, this is what's causing all this concern. You can just look at its structure. Without neural protection." The delegate seemed ready to faint again. "Dr. Chen, that compound has destroyed civilizations. The last species that tried to weaponize it. We don't speak of their fate." More emergency broadcasts streamed in. Sarah caught glimpses of alien text about humans and impossible biology, amid what seemed to be evacuation orders for the nearest alien worlds. "They're establishing a containment perimeter across this entire sector of space," Thomas whispered, reading the translations. "They think we're going to contaminate the galaxy with coffee." The delegate's image wavered as their ship adjusted its shields. "Dr. Chen, the High Science Director will want to understand how your species achieved this evolutionary path. But more importantly, we need to know if you can control it." "Control what?" Sarah asked, though a suspicion was forming in her mind. "Production. Distribution. Consumption." Each word seemed to cause the delegate physical distress. "Surely you have restrictions on who can access such substances. Security protocols. Neural dampening for handlers." Sarah thought about the 3 coffee shops she passed on her daily commute, the coffee maker in every break room, the coffee beans growing freely in farms across Earth. How could she explain coffee culture to a species that saw it as an apocalyptic threat? About that, she began, already seeing the delegate's skin shifting to a deeper shade of distress. "We should probably discuss Earth's global coffee production statistics later." The High Science Director's arrival transformed the morning sky into a spectacular light show. Their vessel, easily twice the size of the other ships, descended through the atmosphere like a miniature sun. Dr. Sarah Chen watched from the facility's observation deck as the massive ship positioned itself at the center of the quarantine field. Remarkable containment protocols you've implemented here, Sarah said to the first delegate, who had finally agreed to return to the facility wearing what appeared to be 3 layers of environmental shielding. Though I'm still not clear on what exactly we're containing. The delegate's translator hummed with harmonics that suggested both fear and respect. Director Isixafateri brings extensive experience with xenobiological anomalies. If anyone can understand how your species achieves the impossible, it will be them. The director's appearance caught Sarah off guard. Unlike the tall, elegant forms of the other delegates, Zixfateri was a compact sphere of swirling colors contained within a crystalline shell. They moved through the air with graceful precision, surrounded by floating displays and scanning equipment. Dr. Chen, the director's voice resonated directly in her mind, bypassing the translator entirely. Your species presents us with a fascinating puzzle. Would you consent to a direct information exchange? Sarah nodded, and suddenly her mind filled with images, histories of distant worlds, civilizations rising and falling, and at the center of it all, a familiar molecular structure. 300,000 years ago, the Zixfateri projected, the Marin civilization discovered what you call caffeine on a distant world. Their entire research station was lost in hours. 200,000 years ago, the Vex attempted to synthesize it as an energy source. Their sun still burns with the residual energy of their mistake. Sarah watched as the images showed the molecule's devastating effects on alien neural systems. Where human brains merely received a pleasant stimulation, alien biology experienced complete synaptic overload. A single cup of coffee contained enough caffeine to theoretically eliminate a small alien city. Yet here you stand. The Zixfateri's shell pulsed with colors Sarah somehow knew meant scientific fascination. Your species not only survives exposure but actively seeks it. More incredibly, you've integrated it into your civilization's daily functions. Coffee is more than just a beverage to us, Sarah explained, reaching for her tablet to show historical data. It's been part of human culture for centuries. We have entire industries, social customs, and cultural practices built around it. The assembled aliens recoiled as she displayed images of coffee shops, coffee farms, and coffee manufacturing plants. The first delegate's outer shield actually sparked with stress. 17 billion cups, Sarah continued, reading from her data. That's approximately how much coffee humans consume each day globally. The director's shell froze momentarily, its swirling colors stuttering. Your species consumes enough neurological devastation daily to eliminate every other spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy, multiple times over. But that's just coffee, Thomas interjected from his monitoring station. Wait until they learn about energy drinks. Sarah shot him a warning look, but the director had already accessed the reference data. Their crystalline shell vibrated at a frequency that suggested either intense excitement or terror. Dr. Chen, the Zixfateri projected finally. I believe we understand now why your species achieved space travel so quickly. Your neural pathways, your entire biological system, has evolved to not just survive, but thrive on substances that the rest of the galaxy considers instant death. The implications are significant. Sarah watched as the director's readings spread across the alien networks. The quarantine field hummed brighter as the galactic community processed this new information about their peculiar neighbors who had casual resistance to one of the deadliest substances known to spacefaring life. Director, she said carefully, would you like to know how we discovered coffee in the first place? It's quite an interesting story about dancing goats. Dr. Sarah Chen stood before the holographic display in the facility's main conference room, watching as alien news networks exploded with reports about Earth. The translation scrolled past in dozens of languages, each more sensational than the last. Toxicity immune species discovered. Death world inhabitants consume neural devastators for pleasure. Earth's morning ritual. A cup of planetary extinction. Director Zixfateri's crystalline shell pulsed with soft light as they monitored the feeds together. Your species has become quite the sensation, Dr. Chen. The Galactic Scientific Assembly has declared an emergency session for the first time in 10,000 years. Sarah watched as images of Earth's coffee shops were broadcast across the galaxy, each with warning labels that would have better suited nuclear waste facilities. Her tablet pinged with incoming research requests from alien scientists, their message headers growing increasingly dramatic. "I've established a preliminary research framework," she said, pulling up her proposal. "If we can understand how human biology processes caffeine differently, it might help explain the evolutionary divergence between Earth life and galactic standard biology." The director's shell shifted to a deep blue of consideration. "Agreed. I've assembled a team of the galaxy's leading xenobiologists." Though their mental voice carried a note of amusement, most are insisting on conducting their research from orbital laboratories. A new alert flashed across the screens. An alien ship had attempted to scan a coffee plantation in Brazil, only to retreat when their sensors overloaded. The news networks immediately began speculating about Earth's neurotoxin farms and humanity's chemical resistance programs. "Perhaps we should show them something really interesting," Thomas suggested from his workstation. He pulled up data from various caffeine studies on human cognitive enhancement. "If they're this worried about coffee, wait until they see how it actually improves our mental performance." The alien scientists in the room froze, their various environmental shields humming with increased power. One of them actually backed away from the display, their translator stuttering. "It makes you stronger." Sarah quickly took control of the narrative. Coffee, and specifically caffeine, has been linked to improved alertness, better memory formation, and enhanced cognitive processing in humans. It's why many of us drink it before starting important work. The director's shell rippled with colors Sarah was beginning to recognize as scientific excitement. "Fascinating. Your species not only survives exposure to a class triple plus neurotoxin, but has adapted to derive beneficial effects from it. The implications for evolutionary theory are staggering." More research requests flooded in as the news spread. Sarah noticed a shift in the headline's tone, moving from fear to cautious amazement. "Human neural resilience. A new frontier in evolution. Earth's toxic gardens. Nature's laboratory of impossible biology. Caffeine immunity. Humanity's path to the stars." "We're receiving diplomatic inquiries from 17 different species," Thomas reported, checking the communications array. "They all want to know how we did it. How humans evolved alongside caffeine without destroying ourselves." Sarah turned to Director Izexvateri, an idea forming. "Director, what if we approach this as a collaborative study? Earth's biologists working alongside galactic scientists to understand not just how humans process caffeine, but what this tells us about the different possible paths of neural evolution." The director's shell brightened considerably. A joint research initiative. It would be unprecedented and potentially revolutionary. They paused, colors swirling. "Though we'll need to establish quite extraordinary safety protocols. Perhaps we should start by explaining why your species thought it was a good idea to ferment these beans in the first place." Sarah smiled, pulling up historical records of coffee's discovery and spread across human civilization. "Well, as I mentioned earlier, it all started with some very energetic goats in Ethiopia." The orbital research station gleamed like a silver snowflake against Earth's blue horizon. Dr. Sarah Chen peered through the observation window as another alien research vessel docked, this one bearing the markings of the Centaurian Science Academy. "Specimen analysis complete," Dr. Chen announced Corette, her Arxian laboratory partner. The insectoid alien's environmental suit hummed softly as they manipulated the holographic display. Human cellular response to caffeine exposure continues to defy conventional xenobiological models. Sarah examined the three-dimensional projection of human neural pathways. After 2 weeks of intensive study, the alien scientists had mapped how Earth's organisms processed caffeine. The results had transformed their understanding of biological evolution. "It's not just resistance," she explained, highlighting specific neural clusters. "Our bodies adapted to use caffeine's properties. The same molecule that causes neural cascade failure in other species actually enhances our neural plasticity. Director Isexvatari's shell pulsed with academic excitement as they entered the laboratory. The implications extend far beyond caffeine, Dr. Chen. Your latest tissue samples suggest humanity's unique evolutionary path has granted you resilience to numerous substances our species consider lethal. The display shifted to show comparative analyses, where alien neural systems collapsed under certain molecular structures. Human neurons adapted and even thrived. Earth's harsh evolutionary history had produced beings that turned toxins into tools. Look at this pattern. Correct chittered, their translator barely keeping up with their excitement. The human stress response system doesn't just survive these compounds, it incorporates them. Your species evolved in an environment we would consider impossibly hostile, yet you transformed these challenges into advantages. A notification chimed through the station. Another research ship had arrived, this one carrying scientists from the galactic core. Earth's unique biology had drawn experts from every corner of known space, all eager to understand how a supposedly primitive world had produced such remarkable adaptations. "We're receiving new data from the surface teams," Thomas reported from his workstation. He had been coordinating with the brave alien researchers who ventured onto Earth's surface in their reinforced environmental suits. They've completed their survey of the Amazon rainforest. The biodiversity readings are, well, they're causing quite a stir. Sarah accessed the report and understood why. Earth's ecosystems contain more variants of supposedly lethal compounds than the rest of the known galaxy combined. What alien species saw as a death world, Earth's life had embraced as an evolutionary catalyst. Dr. Chen, Director Isexvatari projected thoughtfully, their shell swirling with contemplative patterns. "We've discovered something remarkable in your species' neural architecture. The same adaptations that allow you to process caffeine seem to have accelerated your cognitive development in unexpected ways." The holographic display zoomed in on a human brain scan, highlighting pathways that pulsed with familiar activity patterns. Sarah leaned forward, recognition dawning. "Those neural pathways, they're almost identical to our faster-than-light computational matrices." "Precisely." The director's shell brightened. Humanity's exposure to these compounds didn't just grant you resistance. It appears to have played a crucial role in developing the very neural structures necessary for advanced space travel. Your morning cup of coffee may have helped spark your species' journey to the stars. Gret's mandibles clicked in what Sarah had learned was their expression of amazement. A civilization that achieved faster-than-light theory through neural enhancement from substances that should have eliminated their planet's biosystem. The galaxy's greatest toxin became humanity's stepping stone to the cosmos. Sarah smiled, reaching for her coffee mug, now a required research tool that still made visiting scientists nervous. Perhaps we should revise the galactic classification system. After all, one species' poison might be another's path to the stars. The observation deck of the Brazilian Space Research Institute offered a panoramic view of the world's largest coffee plantation. Dr. Sarah Chen watched as an alien research team, clad in their most advanced protective gear, carefully approached the neat rows of coffee plants stretching to the horizon. "Environmental readings are remarkable," Corette announced, monitoring the team's progress from the safety of the observation deck. Their mandibles clicked rapidly as data streamed across their displays. The ambient caffeine levels alone would be classified as a planetary disaster on most worlds. Director Isexvatari's shell pulsed with scholarly interest as they watched a group of farm workers casually tending to the plants. "Notice how the humans require no protective equipment whatsoever. Their natural biological shields are more effective than our most advanced containment systems." Sarah smiled as she sipped her morning coffee, still amused by how the simple action made nearby aliens' environmental suits power up automatically. The plants evolved these compounds as natural pesticides. Over time, Earth's species adapted to handle increasingly higher concentrations. The research team had reached the first row of coffee plants. Their instruments, specially modified to handle Earth's extreme conditions, recorded everything from soil composition to the molecular structure of individual coffee cherries. Fascinating, one of the alien scientists transmitted. The plants are actively synthesizing the compound. They're biological neurotoxin factories, yet local insects have developed partial immunity. The entire ecosystem is built around substances that should be impossibly lethal. Thomas arrived with fresh data tablets, grinning at the aliens' continued amazement. Wait until they discover how many other plants on Earth produce caffeine. Tea, cola nuts, cocoa. One discovery at a time, Sarah cautioned, though she couldn't help but smile. Let's not overwhelm them. A sudden alert drew their attention. One of the research team's environmental suits had detected a microscopic breach. The scientist was quickly teleported back to their ship, but instead of panic, their readings showed something unexpected. No neural cascade failure, Correct reported, analyzing the data. The exposure level would have been fatal on any other world, but Earth's atmospheric distribution seems to have altered the molecule's concentration. We never considered that precise environmental balance could affect toxicity. Director HFY's shell rippled with colors that Sarah had learned meant intense scientific curiosity. Dr. Chen, your planet's biosystem isn't just resistant to these compounds. It's achieved a complex chemical equilibrium that might explain why Earth life evolved such unique properties. The observation decks displays filled with new data as research teams around the world reported similar findings. Earth's ecosystems had developed sophisticated relationships with substances the rest of the galaxy considered impossible to survive. Look at these soil samples, one of the surface team reported. The fungal networks are actually using caffeine as a chemical signaling system. They've turned a neurotoxin into a communication network. Sarah accessed her research notes, a theory forming. What if that's why Earth life developed so differently? While other worlds evolved to avoid these compounds, our species had to adapt to an environment full of them. We didn't just survive. We learned to use them. The director's shell pulsed with agreement. Your planet is a living laboratory of impossible adaptations. Each discovery here challenges our understanding of what life can achieve. As if to emphasize the point, a farm worker walked past the research team, carrying a steaming cup of coffee. The aliens' instruments immediately registered alarm levels that would suggest imminent planetary destruction on any other world, while the workers simply enjoyed their breakfast. Perhaps, Sarah suggested, watching the scene with growing pride. It's time we established a permanent research base here. Earth clearly has much more to teach us about the remarkable adaptability of life. The Grand Hall of the Galactic Science Academy sparkled like a crystalline cave, its walls reflecting the light from 1,000 different worlds. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the podium, facing representatives from every spacefaring civilization in known space. Even through their various environmental suits and protection fields, she could sense their rapt attention. Evolution, she began, gesturing to the holographic display behind her, isn't just about survival. It's about adaptation and transformation. Earth didn't just cope with substances like caffeine. We transformed them into catalysts for our development. Director HFY's shell pulsed with approving colors as they floated beside her. The display showed a time-lapse of human neural development, highlighting the unexpected role of caffeine in shaping human consciousness. The morning cup of coffee that once terrified you, Sarah continued, actually helped shape our cognitive architecture. These supposedly toxic molecules became building blocks for enhanced neural pathways, improved memory formation, and accelerated processing speeds. Correct, now serving as Earth's chief xenobiology liaison, manipulated the controls to show comparative data from 100 different worlds. Notice the pattern. They chittered excitedly. Where other species evolved to avoid these compounds, Earth life evolved to utilize them. This didn't just grant immunity. It created new possibilities for neural evolution. The assembled scientists murmured as the data revealed something remarkable. The same molecular structures that caused devastating neural cascade failures in other species had become crucial components in human cognitive enhancement. We've discovered similar adaptations across Earth's biosphere, Sarah explained, bringing up images from their research. From soil bacteria to forest canopies, Earth's life forms didn't just survive alongside these compounds, they integrated them into their basic functions. What you see as toxins, we transformed into tools. A scientist from the Centaurian delegation raised their appendage. But surely this came at some cost. Such adaptations must have required tremendous evolutionary pressure. Sarah smiled, pulling up new data. Actually, we found something quite remarkable. Earth's harsh conditions, what you might call extreme, created an environment of constant adaptation. Our cells didn't just develop resistance, they became incredibly adaptable to a wide range of molecular structures. The display shifted to show human DNA analysis. Director HFY took over the explanation, their shell shimmering with academic enthusiasm. Observe these genetic markers. Humanity's exposure to caffeine and similar compounds appears to have accelerated the development of neuroplasticity. Your species didn't just survive. You emerged stronger, more adaptable, and with cognitive capabilities that evolved along unique pathways. The implications weren't lost on the assembled scientists. Earth's seemingly hostile environment hadn't hindered evolution. It had accelerated it in unexpected directions. The very substances that the galaxy feared had helped shape a species capable of reaching for the stars. We propose, Sarah announced, reaching the heart of their presentation, a complete revision of our understanding of evolutionary potential. Earth's example shows us that there isn't one path to advanced intelligence. What seems impossible on one world might be the key to advancement on another. The hall erupted in discussion, scientists from 100 worlds debating the implications. Through their various translation devices, Sarah caught snippets of excitement, disbelief, and growing understanding. Think about it, she continued, her voice cutting through the chatter. How many other worlds have we overlooked because they didn't follow expected evolutionary paths? How many potential civilizations might develop along routes we never imagined possible? As if to punctuate her point, she took a sip from her coffee cup. An action that would have caused panic weeks ago, but now drew interested observation from the assembled scientists. The galaxy's deadliest substance had become a symbol of life's incredible adaptability. 1 year after first contact, the International Space Station had transformed into something its original architects could never have imagined. Dr. Sarah Chen gazed through the newly installed observation dome at the remarkable sight. Human and alien vessels moving in harmony against the backdrop of Earth's blue sphere. The first graduating class of the Xenobiological Exchange Program, Thomas announced, reviewing the data on his tablet. 20 alien scientists now certified to handle Earth-level caffeine exposure, though they still insist on wearing their protective suits. Sarah smiled, watching as Corette led a group of alien researchers through their final adaptation protocols. The Arxian scientists had become one of Earth's strongest advocates in the galactic community. Their initial terror of caffeine transformed into scientific passion. Environmental stabilization achieved, Corette announced proudly as their students completed their exercises. Neural protection fields holding at optimal levels. These graduates can now safely observe human coffee cultivation up close. Director HFY's shell pulsed with pride as they joined Sarah at the observation dome. When we first detected your world, we thought we'd discovered another primitive planet barely reaching for the stars. Instead, we found a species that had achieved something we thought impossible. The station's displays showed live feeds from research centers across Earth. In Brazil, alien scientists studied coffee plantations from specialized research platforms. In Ethiopia, archaeologists carefully excavated the sites of humanity's first encounters with coffee, treating them with the reverence usually reserved for ancient technological marvels. The Galactic Science Council has officially reclassified Earth, the director continued, their shell displaying colors of formal announcement. You're no longer considered a death world. Instead, Earth has been designated as an advanced evolutionary crucible, a planet where extreme conditions created unique pathways to intelligence. Sarah watched as a specialized transport ship docked with the station, carrying the first officially sanctioned cargo of coffee beans, destined for the galaxy's most secure research facilities. Each shipment was treated with the kind of security usually reserved for antimatter, but the fear had been replaced by scientific curiosity. "We've received applications from 50 more worlds," Thomas reported, scrolling through the data. "Everyone wants to join the research program now." Turns out the promise of understanding impossible biology is quite the academic draw. Through the dome, they could see the lights of cities sparkling across Earth's night side. Among those lights were the newly established alien research outposts, their crystalline structures glinting like stars themselves. Earth had become a living laboratory, a place where the galaxy's brightest minds came to study life's incredible adaptability. "The most remarkable thing," Corette chittered thoughtfully, their translator conveying deep appreciation, "isn't just your immunity to these substances. It's how your species turned what should have been deadly into something that brings joy. You transform survival into culture." Sarah nodded, taking the sip from her coffee mug, an action that still caused nearby environmental suits to power up automatically, much to everyone's amusement. That's the real lesson Earth has to teach. Life doesn't just endure. It adapts, transforms, and finds new ways to thrive. Outside, a new research vessel emerged from faster-than-light travel, its crystalline structure refracting sunlight across the station. Another group of scientists arriving to study the world that had rewritten their understanding of evolution. Earth's morning beverage had become the galaxy's most studied substance, and humanity's simple act of brewing coffee was now considered one of the most remarkable achievements in biological engineering. "So," Director Ezek Vateri projected with what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a smile, "shall we begin today's research with what you humans call a coffee break? After all, we have much to learn from your most intriguing cultural ritual."